Hello friends, a very good morning to all the students. Am I audible to all? Am I audible to all the students? Okay, fine. Thank you for your answers. So friends, you remember that we are discussing the chapter that is the fourth unit, properties of steam. And friends, in the last session, we have perfectly understood the different thermodynamic properties of the steam that includes the enthalpy of the steam, the specific volume of the steam, and the internal energy of the steam. And we are going to use all those equations, all those relations in solving the numericals of properties of steam. And friends, if you remember in the last session, we have also practiced how to use the steam tables. I hope you remember those methods of finding the values from the steam table. Let us proceed further with the discussion of this unit. So these are the main contents we are going to cover in the current session. Firstly, we will be understanding some of the basic concepts of the throttling process. Then we will understand the basic concepts of the steam calorimeters. And we will be discussing three types of the steam calorimeters. They are the bucket or the barrel calorimeter, the throttling calorimeter, and the separating calorimeter. So let us start with the discussion. So dear friends, the throttling process is a thermodynamic process. During this process, the enthalpy of the gas or the medium remains constant. So it is a very important, very essential thermodynamic process because during this process, the enthalpy remains constant. Therefore, we can write down that is H is equal to constant. H stands for the enthalpy. Sometimes the fluids flow through a restriction. That restriction can be of the type of an orifice, a valve, or a porous medium. So these are the different types of the restrictions provided within the flow of the fluid. That can be the orifice, a valve, or a porous medium. And because of this restriction, the pressure drop occurs adiabatically. During the throttling process, whatever the devices which we are using, all the devices are insulated. Hence, during the adiabatic or during the throttling process, since because of the insulation, there is no heat transfer. Therefore, we are considering it to be the adiabatic process. Also, friends, the changes in the kinetic and the potential energies are negligible. The flow process is considered as a throttling process. So friends, considering all these points in the steady flow energy equation, substituting Q is equal to 0, W is equal to 0, the change in kinetic energy and change in the potential energies all are neglected. So final answer which we are getting, that is no change in the enthalpy, both at the inlet conditions and at the outlet conditions. So friends, if there is no change in the enthalpy at the inlet and outlet, then we can write down delta H is equal to 0. That means the change in enthalpy will be equal to 0. Or another way we can write down, that is H1 is equal to H2. That means the initial enthalpy is equal to the final enthalpy. And hence we can note down the enthalpy remains constant. So this is the basic understanding related to the throttling process. And friends, we will be using this concept of the throttling process in the discussion of the throttling calorimeter. So let us start now the second topic of the current session, that is the steam calorimeters. Dear friends, if you remember the topic of the dryness fraction, I informed you that the dryness fraction of the steam can be measured experimentally, practically. For measuring the dryness fraction experimentally or practically, we are using the apparatus that are the calorimeters. So calorimeters are used for measuring the dryness fraction of the steam, hence known as the steam calorimeters or simply the calorimeters. Basically, friends, the main types of the calorimeters, there are 4 types of the steam calorimeters. The first type, that is the bucket or the barrel calorimeter. The second one, that is the throttling calorimeter. And friends, let me inform you once again, in the discussion of the throttling calorimeter, we will be using the concepts of the throttling process. The third type of the calorimeter, that is the separating calorimeter. So these 3 types we are going to cover in today's session. And the fourth most important type of the steam calorimeter, that is the combined calorimeter. Combined calorimeter is very easy, that is the simple combination of the separating and the throttling calorimeter. And friends, in majority of the practical uses or the practical experimentations for determining the dryness fraction of the steam, we are using the combined calorimeter. So let us now proceed further with the discussion of the different types of the calorimeters. The first type, that is the bucket or the barrel calorimeter. Dear friends, let me inform you that my discussion will be totally related on the practical approach, that is the experimental approach. Some of my discussion points might differ from the points which are given in your textbook. In your textbook, very simple points are given in order to understand the theoretical approach of the types of the calorimeters, but I am taking the practical approach in order to justify you the technical concepts. So if the practical concepts are very clear in your minds, then you can easily follow the language which is given in your textbook. The figures for the apparatus, I will be using the same concepts. So let us start with the discussion of the first type, that is the bucket or the barrel calorimeter. So dear friends, this is the experimental setup in the bucket or the barrel calorimeter. The main components are the sampling tube, the control valve, the pressure gauge used for measuring the pressure of the steam. Then we are having the copper calorimeter. Very important component of this calorimeter, that is the copper calorimeter. It is a simple vessel made of the copper. Surrounding the copper calorimeter, there will be the another device, and in between the two devices, the copper calorimeter and the outer device, we will be having some air or the insulation material. and the whole of the apparatus consisting of the copper calorimeter and the outer device will be placed on a weighing machine. The copper calorimeter will be filled with the standard water. In the copper calorimeter, as you can observe in the image, the sampling tube is passed, and on the bottom of the sampling tube there are some holes which are provided. In order to note down the readings of the temperature, a thermometer is provided in the vessel. And friends, the outer vessel as well as the copper calorimeter both are perfectly insulated from the top side. So there is no heat transfer to the system or from the system. Dear students, let me know from your side, is the experimental setup of bucket or barrel calorimeter clear to all? Because whenever it is asked in the examination, you need to compulsory draw the figure. Is it clear to all, the experimental setup? Okay, fine. So now let us understand some of the basic points of the working or the practical concepts. Now friends, from this steam pipe, the sampling tube, the wet steam will be entering into the vessel. The wet steam through this steam exit will be coming in contact with the water. As you are aware that the wet steam will be at somewhat higher temperature than the water. So because of these temperature differences, now there will be the heat transfer of the steam and the water. And friends, that heat transfer will result into the increased temperature of the water. So that increased temperature can easily be noted from the thermometer. And also this heat collected from the water will also be absorbed by the copper calorimeter. Because friends, the copper is having a good thermal conductivity, it is having the good heat absorption capacity. So the heat energy which is rejected by the steam will be absorbed by the water as well as the copper calorimeter. And all those readings, now how to take the readings, I will show you the practical approach. So the first point is before the steam sampling. That means before the steam is allowed to enter into the calorimeter. Before the steam sampling, we need to note down the following observations: the mass of the empty copper vessel, the mass of the cold water of the vessel, the temperatures of the cold water and the copper vessel, the specific heat of the copper vessel and the specific heat of the water. So these are the different observations which we need to take before the steam sample. Now let us understand what happens during the steam sampling. As seen in the apparatus, now when we open the valve in the sampling tube, we allow the steam sample from the main steam pipe, either can be considered of the boiler, to discharge into the cold water of the vessel through the fine exit holes which are given in the other end of the sampling tube. The steam coming in contact with the water gets condensed because of the heat transfer, giving out its entire latent heat and a part of its sensible heat. Dear friends, if you remember, we have understood that the internal energy of the steam consists of the sensible heat and the latent heat. This heat transfer will be resulting in an increase in the temperature of water. Now the temperature of water will be increased, and also the mass of the water in the calorimeter increases by the amount of the steam which is condensed. So it will also result in the increase in the mass of the water. Now friends, the next point, after the steam sampling, what is to be done? When the steam is being sampled, the experimental procedure has been started. Now after the steam sampling, we need to note down the following observations such as the mass of the warm water in the copper vessel, the temperature of the warm water and the copper vessel after the mixing of steam in the cold water. So these are the different observations to be taken. Now friends, for calculating the dryness fraction of the steam, these are the different terminologies which we are going to use. P is considered as the pressure of the steam in the steam pipe. HF1, that is the enthalpy of water at pressure P. T1, that is temperature of water and vessel before the experiment. T2, temperature of water and vessel after the experiment. These two temperatures can easily be found or observed from the thermometer. HF2, that is the enthalpy of water after mixing of the steam at temperature T2. HFG1, that is the enthalpy of evaporation of the steam. MS, that is the mass of the steam condensed. MW, mass of the water present in the calorimeter. And MCal, that is the mass of the calorimeter itself. CPW, that is the specific heat of the water. CPC, specific heat of the calorimeter, that is of the copper material. And X, that is the parameter which we need to calculate. So X, that is the dryness fraction of the steam. So considering all these notations, now calculation of the dryness fraction, heat lost by the steam, that is equal to the heat gained by the water plus the heat gained by the calorimeter. So friends, firstly we are supplying the wet steam. So I have mentioned the enthalpy of the wet steam. At point number 1, the initial state. So HF1 plus X into HFG1, this is the enthalpy of the wet steam. And now friends, since the steam is condensed in the water, we need to also consider the enthalpy of water. So I have written that is HF2, enthalpy of the water. And since we are discussing the heat lost by the steam, we are taking the mass of the steam, that is MS. Now this heat which is lost by the steam will be gained by the water. So the heat gained by water, simple equation MC delta T. So MW, mass of water, CPW, specific heat of the water, into delta T, final temperature minus initial temperature. Similarly, the heat gained by the copper calorimeter, same equation, MC delta T. So mass of calorimeter, specific heat of calorimeter, again delta T, that is T2 minus T1. So experimentally, practically, we will be noting down or observing all these values of the equation. Only the unknown term will be the X. So substituting all the values in the above equation, we need to calculate the value of X. X stands for the dryness fraction of steam. So dear friends, let me ask you, is the concept clear to all of the bucket or the barrel calorimeter? Have you all understood the concepts of this first type of the calorimeter? Okay, fine. Thank you for giving me your confirmations. Now let us proceed further with the second type of the calorimeter, that is the throttling calorimeter. Remember friends, in this calorimeter we will be applying the concepts of the throttling process. The experimental setup is very easy. There is the steam pipe, the sampling tube, a throttle valve is provided in order to produce the throttling effect. Then the inner chamber is provided, the outer chamber is provided. In between the chambers, you are seeing the baffle plates are provided in order to give the direction to the motion of the steam. And on the outer chamber, we are provided with a pressure gauge. In your textbook, the pressure gauge will not be provided, a manometer will be provided. Both the components are having the same function to measure the pressure. The inner chamber will be having one more compartment which will be having the water, and the water, that particular compartment will be having the thermometer. The outer chamber will be open for the exhaust of the steam. Now let us understand the working or the procedure for the throttling calorimeter. From the steam pipe through the sampling tube, we will be supplying the steam in the calorimeter. When the steam is coming towards the throttle valve, by the operation of the throttle valve, now the steam will be throttled, and during the throttling process we have understood that the enthalpy remains constant. That throttle steam is then passed on to this chamber, that is the inner chamber. In the inner chamber, the throttled steam, that can be either the dry steam or the superheated steam, will be flowing in the inner chamber. As the steam is flowing in the inner chamber, it will do the heat transfer with the water which is collected in the compartment. Because of this heat transfer, now the temperature of the water will be increased. That can be measured from the thermometer. As the heat transfer is increased, now finally the steam will be passed on to the outer chamber where we are going to measure the pressure of the steam. And finally the steam will be removed out of the outer chamber. So friends, for two pressures we are considering the working in this calorimeter. Firstly, we are considering the pressure P1, that is of the wet steam entering before the throttle valve. And second pressure we are considering, that is the pressure P2 of the produced superheated steam that is coming at the out of the calorimeter. So enthalpy at pressure P1, that will be equal to the enthalpy at pressure P2, because we are considering the throttling process. Let us now proceed further and understand some practical approach. So during the steam sampling, before the starting of this practical, firstly we need to note down the following observations. Pressure of the wet steam before throttling, the pressure of the superheated steam after throttling, the temperature of the superheated steam after throttling. So friends, it is very preferable that by the throttling process we produce the superheated steam, so that we can note down the pressures of the superheated steam. Hence, the statement is written: for the accurate result from the throttling calorimeter, the necessary condition is that the steam should be in the superheated state after throttling. Generally, 5 degrees Celsius of superheating is most desirable. That means the wet steam temperature must be increased to plus 5 degrees Celsius. So these are some of the practical concepts, the observations to be taken during the steam sampling. Now let us understand the calculations for the dryness fraction. Again, we need to consider some notations for the calculation. So P1, that is pressure of steam before throttling, P2 pressure of steam after throttling. HFG1, that is enthalpy of evaporation at pressure P1. Hg2, that is enthalpy of the saturated steam at pressure P2. CPS, that is the specific heat of the superheated steam. T saturated, saturation temperature at pressure P2. T sup, that is the temperature of superheated steam after throttling, which is measured by the thermometer, and that is to be considered at pressure P2. HF1 and HF2, that is the enthalpy of the water before and after the throttling process respectively. And finally, all these experimentation, all these procedures are need to calculate the dryness fraction of the steam, that is X. So for calculating the dryness fraction with the help of the throttling calorimeter according to the concepts of throttling, we are perfectly aware that enthalpy before throttling is equal to enthalpy after throttling. Before throttling, friends, we are having the wet steam, and after throttling, we are having the superheated steam. So we can write down thus the enthalpy of wet steam at pressure P1 is equal to the enthalpy of the superheated steam at pressure P2. So enthalpy of the wet steam at pressure P1 can be noted as HF1 plus X into HFG1. And for the superheated steam, the enthalpy is given as Hg2 plus CPS into T sup minus T saturated. From this equation, now we will be calculating the value of dryness fraction. So this is the concept of the throttling calorimeter. Now let us proceed further and understand some of the limitations of the throttling calorimeter. This method is suitable for measurement of the higher values of the dryness fraction. That means the steam should not be very wet. This is a very important limitation of the throttling calorimeter. The steam should not be very wet. That means the wetness fraction must be as small as possible and the dryness fraction must be as high as possible. But the steam must be a type of the wet steam. And after the throttling, the steam must be at least dry saturated. So these are the different limitations of the throttling calorimeter. Dear students, let me ask you, have you all understood the concept of the throttling calorimeter? Is it clear to all? The throttling calorimeter? Kindly share me your responses if you have understood the topic. Okay, fine. Thank you for your responses. Now, friends, let us proceed further and understand the third type of the calorimeter, that is the separating calorimeter. This calorimeter basically works on the principle of separating the water particles or the moisture content from the wet steam. And because of this reason only, the name is given, that is separating calorimeter. So this is the experimental setup for the separating calorimeter. We are seeing the steam pipe, the sampling tube having the control valve. The sampling tube is provided with the pressure gauge for measuring the pressure. The first chamber is having the inner chamber and the outer chamber. The inner chamber consists of a tray, that is the separator or a perforated tray. Very important component of the separating calorimeter. And friends, in this tray at appropriate distances, the holes will be provided. So you can see that the bottommost part of the tray, that is having the dashed lines, that means the holes are provided in the perforated plate. or can be considered as the baffle plate, or it is the separator. Then now the outer chamber will be further connected with the barrel calorimeter, and the barrel calorimeter will be supported by a weighing machine. Let us understand the working of the separating calorimeter. It is very easy to understand. The wet steam which is coming from the sampling tube, by the opening of the control valve, the wet steam will be heating on the separator. As we are aware that the wet steam will be possessing the water particles, the water molecules in the suspension. Because of the heating of the wet steam on the separator, the water particles will be separated and the dry steam will be separated. The water particles, because of the inertia force having the higher density, they will be collected on the bottom part of the inner chamber, and dry steam, because of the lower density, it will be transferred to the outer chamber. And finally, by the operation of this another control valve, the dry steam will be collected in this particular section of the tube, and in the barrel calorimeter, that steam will be undergoing the heat transfer with the water which is present in the wet steam or which is present in the barrel calorimeter. So we will be calculating finally the mass of the barrel calorimeter from the weighing machine, that can be considered as the mass of the steam, and from the inner chamber we will be calculating the mass of the water which is separated from the wet steam which is initially coming from the steam pipe, the sampling tube. So friends, in this experimental setup of the separating calorimeter, the important component, that is the separator or the perforated plate, because on this component only the separation of the water particles and the dry steam takes place. Let us understand some more concepts. So before the steam sampling, before starting the practical, we need to note down the observations such as the level of water in the inner chamber and the mass of the water in the steam condensing chamber, that is the lowermost part, barrel calorimeter. So barrel chamber, so mass of the water in that steam condensing chamber, that is M1. During the steam sampling, what is the procedure we need to follow? Just understand the points. The wet steam enters the inner chamber of the separating calorimeter through a sampling tube which is controlled by a valve. While testing for the dryness fraction of the steam, the valve should be fully open in order to transfer maximum amount of the wet steam. In the inner chamber of the separating calorimeter, the separators or the baffle plates or the perforated plates are arranged in such a manner so as to separate out the moisture or the water particles from the steam. And friends, I am telling you again and again, this is one of the most important part of the separating calorimeter. Because on this principle only, on this concept only, the separating calorimeter works and we are able to calculate the dryness fraction of the steam. Hence now, when the steam enters the separating calorimeter, it suddenly undergoes a reversal of direction of motion when it strikes the baffle plates, as we have already seen in the arrows which are provided in the experimental setup, the figure. This causes the water particles which have the greater inertia to separate from the wet steam. Moving further, the water particles, because of the inertia, they move downwards and collected at the bottom portion of the inner chamber of the separating calorimeter. The dry steam which is separated moves upwards and enters the annular space between the inner and the outer surface, and thus the dry steam goes downward in the bottom part, that is the barrel compartment. The dry and the saturated steam is discharged from the separating calorimeter and it is finally condensed in the steam condensing chamber. The condensed steam in the steam condensing chamber is then weighed by a weighing machine. So this is the different procedure during the steam sampling. Now friends, after the steam sampling, we need to note down the observations, that is the level of water in the inner chamber, that is L2, the mass of the water in the steam condensing chamber, that is M2. Now friends, the calculation is very easy to understand, that is MW, mass of the water collected in the inner chamber, that is kg, ms, that is the mass of the steam which is condensed in kg, x, that is the dryness fraction of the steam. So the simplest equation of the dryness fraction, that is x is equal to ms upon ms plus mw, substituting the value of ms and mw. Dear friends, in the previous point I told you that m1 and m2, m1 represents the mass of the water which is collected in the inner chamber. For better understanding, I am taking the notation given in your textbook, that is mw, and I have taken the notation, that is m2, mass of the steam which is condensed in the steam condensing chamber. But for better understanding, as given in your textbook, I am taking the notation, that is ms. So mw, mass of the water, ms, that is the mass of the steam, that is the dry steam which is condensed in the steam condensing chamber. So according to the definition, x is equal to ms upon ms plus mw. So from this equation, we can calculate the value of x. Now friends, let us understand some of the limitations of the separating calorimeter. This calorimeter gives only the approximate value of the dryness fraction of the steam, and this calorimeter is used for finding the dryness fraction of very wet steam. Very wet steam represents, justifies the point that it should have higher values of the wetness fraction. The water particles, the moisture content must be present in the maximum content in the wet steam. And that steam is most preferable in the separating calorimeter. So these are the two limitations of the separating calorimeter. So friends, considering the limitations of the throttling and the separating calorimeter, now in the fourth type, we will be combining both these calorimeters so that the limitations, the drawbacks of each calorimeter will be reduced or removed, and we will be getting a new type of the experimental setup that is known as the combined calorimeter. And friends, the combined calorimeter is an important question, so that I will be discussing in my next lecture of basic mechanical engineering. So with this, I am concluding the session from my side. Thank you for watching the current session. Have a nice day. Now friends, if you are having any questions from your side, you can ask me your doubts in the chat box. Any questions from any student? For all the calorimeters, the figures are very important because they are the experimental setup.